Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Meridian Point podcast, where we explore the intersection of disruption and innovation. I'm your host, Kumar Danatran. Whoa, hold on one second. What is going on here? Oh, I see what's going on. Okay. Sorry about that. I was hearing an echo, and it was us going live. So let's see, where were we? Today, we're joined by Glenn Poulos, a serial entrepreneur who has built and sold multiple successful companies throughout his career. Glenn is the author of Never Sit Still, Never Sit in the Lobby. We're going to explore that book, and the title, of course, is very evocative. And the book features his 57 winning sales factors. With 3 decades of experience developing thriving distribution businesses, Glenn now brings his expertise to his newest venture, Prong USA, while mentoring business leaders. Glenn, welcome to the show. It's so good to have you on.
Hi, Kumar. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Of course. Yeah, it's a pleasure. You and I met maybe a few months ago where we started to put together kind of the framework for this talk, and I'm really excited to get going. I did read some of your book, and so these questions are influenced a little bit by the book that you wrote. I'll start with the first question. So your career spans 3 decades of building and selling businesses in rapidly evolving industries. What initially drew you to distribution, and how have you managed to consistently spot opportunities while others have struggled with market disruptions?
Good question. But with just on the timing side, so with the decades clipping by here, in 2025, I officially clicked over into the 4th decade, or 40 years in this game. So joining it in 1985, and now it's 2025. So officially 40 years in the sales game, always working sort of for a distributor, or having started and ran and sold several companies, and now working on a final. Well, I say final because of my age, but the reason distribution, why my first job in sales was for a sales company distributing products, high-tech electronic products from around the world, in my territory of that time, which was Canada, and specifically Southern Ontario near Toronto. And it's a very well-established business. You approach companies from around the world, from Sweden, South Africa, Australia, Italy, France, that need sales forces in your country. And and they're not big enough to be direct, right? And so they hire your firm, and typically in a lot of cases in the kind of world I'm in, you're getting an exclusive in your territory, either industry-wide wise or geographical, right? You have all of Canada, or maybe you have all of the telecom space, or maybe all of the power utility space, something like that, right? And your job is to go and build brand name recognition for them, like you were their direct sales force. And if they get any leads, they pass them to you, and you import someone places an order, you buy the products, you import them, you mark them up, you resell them. And it's very, repeatable process, right? And so I learned it in 1985. In 91, I went out and started my first company, sold it in the early 2000s, started another one, sold another company in 2022. And now I'm on my 3rd, leg of running a distributor that I own myself. So
that's amazing. So I suppose when you're sort of building the brand for the companies that you work with, that is your bread and butter, right? It's if you're not able to build a compelling enough message, then is that cost you incur solely, or does the partner company?
These are really good questions, and they're sort of the whole go to the heart of what the business is, right? In the sense that you are sort of, your sunk cost is this cost of going out and making sales calls, wherein there might not be any business in the beginning, but they're also giving you leads that you didn't otherwise maybe find, right? And so that's where sometimes arguments with some of these vendors might occur, where they're like, oh, we're passing you all these leads, right? And we're like, yeah, but we're also getting you into the government, the United States government, or the Canadian government, or some, large, which takes maybe 6 months or a year, and we don't get any payback, right? So these small leads that you're giving us help fund And so it becomes a balancing act. And so the manufacturer would participate in the area. Maybe they do some advertising and either nationally, globally, or what have you, that spills over into your territory, and you get those leads. They sponsor you and help you with trade shows. You co-op trade shows, you co-op ads, maybe in trade journals and things like that, where you split it 50-50. And yeah, it's kind of like a chicken pays for the egg and the egg pays for the chicken kind of thing, right? And you're kind of sharing in it. And that's really the whole heart of the business is doing that. And when you're just there to fulfill orders or something like that, that's not the business that I'm in. That's more broadline distribution, where it's about supply and credit and fulfillment. The market's already there. People want to buy your widget, your gizmo, your quantum exasperator, as I like to call it, right? And and they're like, I want to buy that, and they need it in broadly distributed, right? So they'll hire a very large distributor that also carries 9 competitors. They don't care which exasperator you buy. They just want you to buy the one that's in stock, right? Whichever one they get spiffs on, right? Where we are dedicated, we're not competing technically. We don't have technological overlap or competition. So in this particular slice of the technology space I'm in, I'm not competing with multiple brands. I might have 10 brands. Like in my current company, I have 10 lines, but none of them compete with each other. They all make completely different products, and there's no overlap. And to go to an 11th product is challenging. 11th line for me is difficult, because I would start competing with line number 1. And so it starts to, there becomes a political problem, because you're exclusive. We have a saying I'm from Canada. I'm living in Florida now, but I mean, a lot of my sayings, I revert back to Canada, right? But we have a saying, in Canada, the 401 runs in both directions, right? Which is the biggest highway in the world, and the 401. And in Toronto, it's the largest number of lanes or whatever, but we say it runs in both directions, which means if I want an exclusive, I have to give you an exclusive. And if you expect me to be exclusive, I expect you to be exclusive. It's a monogamous relationship.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. It sounds like a win-win in that sense also, right? Yeah. Because you are taking care of the needs of your partners, and they are taking care of your needs in a way. How does the current economic climate affect your business with tariffs and stuff? I mean, you're based in Florida. I know you're from Canada originally.
Yeah. So now I'm in the US. So of course I'm looking at tariffs being applied to every possible supplier, except for maybe a domestic US supplier. I have 1 or 2 domestic suppliers I work with, but everything else comes from Europe and South America and Asia and all over, right? And all of them have a tariff attached to them at the moment. And so, total fear would be the way I would answer the question. When he announced the 10% Europe going to 50, of course, I was like, I couldn't eat. And of course, they call him Taco, right? Trump chickened out again, or whatever they call it. However but I mean, in the moment, I was just consumed with total fear. Like, I'm not going to get a customer to be able to absorb a 50%. Like when it's 10% tariff, we're all participating in it. Most of our vendors, they've agreed to pick up a third. We're taking a third discount to the customer, and the customer's paying a third of the 10%, right?
Okay.
And so, but when the tariff becomes a 50%, the tariff itself, it becomes the customer's problem, because I can't absorb 20% of it, right? Like neither can the vendor, the manufacturer, or myself, and the customers then becomes staring down the face of a 50% tariff, and then they have to look to either most likely delaying the purchase or sourcing something different. Not to say that they're going to find it cheaper in the United States. I'm just saying the sale itself becomes in jeopardy. And so the tariffs is making life really, really complicated. The big beautiful bill just passed on the weekend, right? And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's going to have $5 trillion in spending coming along with it, and that may bring with it some. Although there's lots of people that are mad about some of the decisions inside the big beautiful bill, there's there's a lot of quantitative easing or money printing in that. That money has to go somewhere. I'm in the utility space now. I'm hoping that some of it goes to hardening the grid against cyber attacks and other things, and I can sell them equipment to help them, bring their grids up to date. I mean, that would just be luck, but right now in this exact moment, the business is very challenging, and
I suppose it's in the unpredictability of these tariffs, because you don't know what they are. They go up, they go down. It's sort of at the whim of this person that's,
he said the 10% Europe tariff was changing on July 9th, and I haven't heard anything to the contrary. Don't know what it will be or what have you, but and the Europeans, I think, have been the most sort of intransigent about being cooperative with the U.S. government, right? Other countries have been more flexible in their approach, and they've come to agreeable terms quicker, right? So I'm just sort of praying right now, and have to wait and see what it is over the next few days, and kind of roll with the punches. But
there's been some talk of extending it out to the end of the month or beginning of August or something like that. So I mean, who knows? Don't really know what's going to happen, but know that tariffs in some form or another are going to stay. But it's hard to predict when you don't know what the percentage is. And it's interesting that you and the suppliers are absorbing some of the costs when it's 10%, and not passing it all on to the consumer, which
a lot of our competitors are passing it all on.
So
it's becoming the talking point, and a bone of contention in some regards, where if there's a competitive play, it stands out quite readily in the presentation of the pricing that the shared approach is there, and then they're saying, well, the other suppliers actually not, it comes out that they're not absorbing any of it, and they're trying to pass on the whole thing. And then also the other argument is that it's 10% on the cost, right? It's on the landed cost. So there's a little bit of jiggery pokery that can go on with people as well, because I mean, let's say they're buying a $10,000 item. Well, the landed cost is much less than $10,000 because you're importing it and you're marking it up and selling it. So maybe you're buying it for $6,000 or maybe $7,000 or maybe $5,000. It depends on the business that you're in for your gross margins. But the 10% would be on the $6,000 price, which means it would be $10,000 plus 10 plus whatever amount of $6,000. But the vendors can't really, they don't want to. So some of them are trying to even charge 10% on 10,000, which is disingenuous.
Really gouge the customer, make a buck here while you can, and blame it on tariffs. And that's
exactly.
That's not good business practice. Speaking of business practices, I want to shift over to the book, Never Sit in the Lobby. Sure. Tell us a little bit about the title, and you painted an evocative image when we last spoke about the title and sort of what prompted the writing of this book. I'd love to have you share that with our audience.
Yeah. So the title, first of all, wasn't my choice. I got overruled by the first editor and said that was my title. I don't remember what it was lousy. And it was a lady, and she said, she pointed out that one of the chapters called Never Sit in the Lobby would make a wonderful title. And then added some elements of my original title into the sub thing, 57 winning factors, et cetera, right? And so the whole idea behind the Never Sit in the Lobby and all the other rules in the book were basically the rules that I learned sort of getting black eyes in the field. And as I say, learning how to get, act, and stay in front of my customers and to be a pleasure to do business with always, right? And really placing an emphasis on being a pleasure to do business with, which the alternative is being a pain in the ass and being dislikable, right? And I don't like that approach. And none of us do when it comes to salespeople. And one of the, and so I wrote over the years, I constantly wrote down these rules I learned from other people. And one of them that I learned myself was actually never sit in the lobby, right? And so, and what I mean by that is that, show up on time. And then once you're there and you've announced yourself and you're waiting, do not sit down. Do not engage in your phone. Don't pull out anything to play around with. Don't be staring at plaques on the wall and reading the magazine or making phone calls or doing anything like that. You just want to be focused on the moment that person walks through the door. And, there's a rule that follows right afterwards, which is always have something in your hand and something in your mind, right? And the something in your hand is something to give to the person, hand it to them. A lot of times my way in the door was they asked for a quote, they asked for literature, and they asked for something from me. And they said, "Oh, just send me a quote," right? And I'm like, "Well, I'm actually there on Thursday. Can I drop it off?" And they're like, "Oh, well, I'm really busy, but you can drop it off." And I'm like, "Okay." And so I show up. I never sit in the lobby. And when they come, they forget. And by that time on Thursday, they forgot. They told me they were too busy to come down and get it. And they usually come down and get it, right? And so I have something in my hand, something in my mind. And, that's one of the, and, the whole idea about not sending them the quote is another rule in the book, one of 57, which is never fax the facts and never ship the shit, right? And so, which means whenever there's an opportunity and it's geographically available, do not ever send or email or ship something to the customer. Always hand deliver it, because you're never going to be given a better invite into into their world, right? And so these little package of rules are all about getting in front of the customer. And then I build on it with ways on how to stay in front of the customer and how to act in front of the customer. And so
how have you adapted your approach in a increasingly disconnected world where you may not have the advantage of geographic co-location, so to speak, right? You're dealing with people that are across the world, for instance.
Yeah. I don't know if this is controversial or not, but what I will say is that the whatever we think about that is that every time you're not in front of the customer, someone else is, and that's why they got the order and you didn't. And so you can say maybe like SaaS companies and things like that, they do everything remotely and it's a whole virtualized. I don't sell that kind of product, right? I sell a product that is bolted into your network or it's plugged in the wall, and it operates and functions and performs measurements or, acts as instrumentation or network elements or something like that, right? And so typically the customer would want to trial your product, test the product in the network, make sure it does the job. Maybe it's a production test thing, maybe it's in the network. And so to think that it can all be done remotely is a fallacy, because they're going to need to try your product, which means that to do what you're saying is I would be shipping the shit, which is a golden rule not to break, right? And you're saying, well, what if you're geographically unavailable? Well, it depends on the sale, right? Like there might be a situation where I might have to ship something because I'm in like Virginia or something and the guy's in Seattle. Well, obviously I'm not going to drive to Seattle to hook it up, but for the most part, like in my company I have now, I have guys all over the US. There's 7 of them. I mean, they're not everywhere, but and they're all within reasonable driving distance of the pockets of my most biggest opportunity. And their job is to never fax the facts, right? And and so the point is that if you're not there and you're trying and thinking that you're doing it remotely, you're actually just fooling yourself, in my opinion. It's my opinion. And that I believe that the guy who's getting the order most of the time, you wonder why you didn't, is the guy that actually showed up. Because if I ship it to them or I'm not there, how do I know the competitive landscape? I will never get that from the customer over a Zoom call. He's not going to tell me about the competition. But when I'm there and I'm in the lobby, right now, I had something in my hand. I gave him the quote. I gave him the literature he asked for. Then the next rule is always ask for a mini tour, right? And a mini tour is a tour that's mini, meaning just give me a quick look around. Where are you hooking up my stuff? Where are you putting it? Can you show me that? Just that and only that. I don't need a whole tour of your entire building or your company history. And when you're in the building, once you get past the lobby, that's when you start to see the coffee mugs, the mouse pads, and the water bottles from your competitors lining people's desks. And you can see what other products that they use that you didn't even know that you sell, that you can mentally write down and sell to them later, and maybe get names of other people that buy other things that you sell that you didn't even know your customer used. Right. But really what you want to find out is, hey, am I delivering something that's going to go into a greenfield application where it's brand new and I have a better than even chance? Or do they have 9 of my competitors already installed and the boss told them, call Glenn because we're going to keep the competitor honest this time. He's ripping us off. And so they're bringing me in to keep the competitor honest. Because if he's got 9 of the competitor, he's not going to buy my box, right?
Yeah.
And that's where my next rule comes in, which is I'd rather be last than second, right? Because second is the first loser, and he
Yeah.
didn't get anything except steak knives, right? And
Yeah.
so, the winner's the one that gets the Cadillac, right? And so, what do I mean by last and second? The moment I realize unequivocally that I'm not going to get the deal, right? Like, it has to be unequivocal, and it can be at any point in the cycle. But whatever that point comes, I will immediately recuse myself and stop selling that customer. And my next action is to get in my car or wherever and race to my next opportunity
Mm.
and try to win that before the competitors that are wasting their time at that location,
Mm.
light on to the next deal. Because why would I want to waste my time when I know I'm going to lose?
Yeah.
I'm not saying I give up early. I didn't say that. I said when I know unequivocally. Like, for instance, guys have told me, hey, you got great stuff, but you're not going to get the deal because we have a contract with Hewlett Packard or
Right.
IBM, Dell, or whatever, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. I mean, why didn't they tell me that? Well, we just want to keep these guys honest. I'm like, okay, well, thanks for letting me know. And then the guy later says, hey, can I get a demo? And I'm like, well, I can maybe get you one in a couple of months. And he's like, well, this deal's going to be done in a week. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, our thing's tied up. And so I'm polite about it, but I'm not going to like waste my demo. And remember, I want to if I give you a demo, I'm going to deliver it. I'm not going to ship it. So,
Yeah.
so
It's time for you. That's right.
yeah. So that's why I'd rather be last, because it's I
Mhm.
save the most amount of money, right? I lose first,
Yeah.
right?
These are all really very insightful, especially for me. I everyone's a salesperson, right? I mean, have to be. If you have your own business, you're selling something, and
Yeah.
it's always been a weak point for me personally, the
Right.
selling aspect of it. Not because I guess I'm just not very good at it, because these rules are really insightful. They make a lot of sense, but a lot of what I sell isn't widgets that you install. It's services. I'm
Right.
selling myself, and to a large degree, and the services that me and my partners provide, and coaching and consulting and things like that. But I can see the value of meeting face to face, right? So face to face communication is still trumps anything that you can do virtually, in my
Right.
opinion. It's just hard when you have clients that are around the world, and so
Yes.
we end up having to send things over email, like a
For
proposal
sure.
or whatever. And I wish I could go there and present it to them in person. Here it is. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
it
definitely a pickle for you. There's no question. And also the challenge you face selling, servicing of a coaching or consulting kind of a nature. But just like selling hardware or whatever, one thing that I learned a long time ago, and it is talked about in the book, I'm not sure I have a rule and a name for it, but is that the best way to sell to a customer actually is to become an absolute expert on how the customer literally makes money.
mm,
And so, and some people like yeah, I don't right off the top of my head today, I don't have one that just jumps right in my mind, but a lot of people think they know what the company does, but they think of it at a sort of more of a surface level, right? Rather than understanding that, hey, this is what pays the bills at
right.
XYZ Corp, right? Yes, they sell Kleenex or something like that, but maybe they make a specific cloth that they sell to the medical industry that makes $1 billion of profit. And the Kleenex is just, what they started with and what they're known for. And so you're thinking I'm selling them something to help them, do the marketing on Kleenex or whatever it is. But the point is that the more you can learn about the customer and how they make money, the better you can tailor your presentation to them getting the result that they need, rather
Yeah.
than you touting the benefits of your products, right? Because that's what
Sure.
most people do, right? So
Yeah. It's
on my
not about
website,
you.
yeah,
Exactly.
on
It's
my
not about
website,
you.
there's a
It's about
thing
them.
called the punch perfect pitch and close, right? And it shows you how to present your products using one of the things from the book called the Goldilocks principle, the power of three, and what I call the punch, perfect pitch, and close. And it's a technique of, first of all, figuring out what you need to be doing, and then the punch is where you change their state, right? And you can do that remotely by over Zoom by showing them. Typically you would want to figure out what is the end result this guy needs, and then show them someone else getting that result in some sort of an emotional impact video. You know what I mean? And I don't know exactly what your consulting is, but think of showing the change of state of a prior client as a video. And don't tell them about, oh, we got 95 years collective experience with 9 MBAs and 4 PhDs. Nobody cares about that.
Yeah, no one cares.
Right? Like they're already, half the room's already left. They're mentally, and they're thinking about groceries for the wife and, or what they're doing on the weekend. And so, and then you follow up with showing them how you're going to change their state into the state that they just witnessed. And at the end, that you won. You don't have to close them, because if they don't ask you how much it costs, then you didn't do a good job.
Right.
And they close themselves, right?
Yeah. No, that's really sound advice, and certainly something that resonates very well with me. And I'm sure a lot of the listeners here that are either selling physical or sort of more service-based products, if you will. The need to connect with them and really make it about them, and really understanding what they do and how they do it and how they make money, and so that you can serve them appropriately, or at least you can provide a pitch that really resonates with them, because it's what they need and not what you want to sell necessarily. So I really like that. Obviously you've built and sold a couple of businesses in your career, and you're on your third one now. What lessons have you learned about adapting to change that could help our listeners navigate through their own disruptions?
Right. So one, when you're selling your business, the most important thing is who's buying it, right? And so, and what does the other side of the deal look like, right? So that's just one little snippet about selling your businesses and stuff, because, and I mean, these stories could take a little while, so there might not be time for it. But I mean, when I sold my first business, I sold it to a public company. I became a multimillionaire, but it was all share deal. It was a 100% share deal. I only got a very small amount of cash. And in the first 18 months, while I was on a insider trading hold, that company went bankrupt and the shares went to zero, and I lost my life savings, and I lost everything. And I had basically given away my business, which is why I started the second company. And because I didn't have a job, and I'd lost everything. Right. And so, and I thought this was a household name in Canada that bought my business, but household names can go bankrupt. The Hudson Bay just did. Right. And the oldest company in 400-year-old company in Canada just went under. And so, the thing about, you're asking about change or whatever, is the biggest thing is taking that step, right? It's the final step is the most difficult one, but it's the most important one. And really it's what gets you from being scared of taking the step to being scared of failing after taking the step. And so the point is, and until you've taken that final step, you're just running up against a wall that, that prevents you from moving forward. But the moment you've taken the final step, everything in your power goes towards being successful in your new choice, right? I mean, your question was kind of broad in what you asked me, so I'm answering parts of it, but also like, if you're selling your company, also what I've learned now after having sold 2 businesses and having to stay is limit your aftermarket stay time to as little as possible. Like, sell the business and get out, right? Like, you're going to have to do your earn out, whatever that is, but make it as short as possible. Don't go for the 3-year, like, I could double my money if I stay for 3 years and I do this and that. Like, take the 6-month one. Maybe it's a bit less money or whatever, and take the lion's share up front, do your 6-month earn out and be gone, and go do something different, because the new owners they're the owners now. You're not the owner. And you will culturally, there'll be dissonance there between you, how you would do it and they would do it with the new as the new.
You have to divest yourself of that emotionally as well as from a business standpoint.
Exactly.
So looking ahead, what do you see? What emerging disruptions do you see coming in your industry, distribution industry, and how are you preparing for those with your current venture?
Yeah. So one, I'm trying to figure out ways of using, of course, AI to automate whatever parts of the business that make sense, and
Hmm.
that can, so obviously at the beginning right now it's on lead generation and
Hmm.
a little bit of content creation and helping with all that. Can I get a robot to go and make the sales calls and do the demos? I don't know, maybe. And hopefully I'm retired by then. But the uh, that's the biggest challenge right now, is figuring out how to use these advanced tools and in a way that's actually getting me, you know, quantifiable results and stuff like that. Right. And so, um, but we're not using like AI automation on the phone call side, but we do use a lot of automation to get the names and numbers and potential targets. But we get real people to make the phone calls still, that
Hmm.
drive leads, that go to our inside people that are still real. There are people that are touting that they can make the calls for us and stuff like that. So far, I haven't quite been convinced, and but it is close. It's coming. I've had a conversation with at least one that I know was with an AI agent, and I was remarkably impressed. But
Yeah.
it was in a very structured, I can't remember what it was, but it was like a software tool. Like, I think it was
Mm.
maybe like credit checks or something like that. And you're able to curate the conversation. I'm selling hundreds of products from dozens of suppliers around the world with massive technology. It's impossible for, how do I train an AI like to
Yeah. You'd
carry
have
on a
to sort of create.
conversation, right? It's very difficult, right?
You'd
So
have to create possibly a custom large
yeah,
language model that is trained on
yeah,
all of the products that you. And the thing is,
right,
you're bringing new products all the time, so you'd have to
yeah,
do something very specialized for what you do to be able to train
right,
an AI
right.
agent to be able to take sales calls.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, it'd be an interesting project, I should say.
yeah.
So we're getting sort of towards the end of our time together. What have I not asked you that you'd like to share?
Well, the one thing that I've learning, so because my last company in Canada, Gap Wireless, that I sold, we started in 2007. I had a partner. We grew it to $84 million in
Mm,
turnover in sales when we had sold it. It was quite successful, and it was really interesting or whatever. But now I bought a small business in the United States, and it was about a $3 million company when I bought it, with a few people. I've expanded it. It's growing now a little bit here and there. But what I'm realizing, in just looking back over the 18 months that I've owned it and what have
mhm,
you, is that, you know, the analogy I tell myself is, it's not about the on my watch or the clock. It's not about the minute hand or the hour hand or whatever. It's actually about the second hand, and just showing up and to this small business and doing the next right thing over and over and over again. Click click click, the second hand moves. I'm gonna, for this hour I'm working on the newsletter, then I have to call a customer who's upset about something, and then I have to help a guy do something else, then I have to maybe race to the back and help someone pack a large box or whatever. But always doing the next right thing. And you look back over the days, weeks, and months, and you realize, hey, the business just in these many months has grown significantly by
mm,
these small steps, right? And it's not the large things. It's not about, it's about showing up and continuing to
mm.
do the next right thing. And I mean, that for me, it's the funnest part. And I think the bigger the company got before, the more less I liked it. And I like sort of having my hand in everything. But I mean, the yeah, I mean, it's just been valuable kind of awakening that I've been having, seeing
Yeah.
this. It probably happened the same way in 2007 when I started the last company. It was very similar dynamic and size and whatever, but I don't remember back that far. And
Yeah.
but now in real time, you know, and it's just, I'm not, even though I've done it before and I've had, higher level positions in bigger companies and stuff, like, it's not about that now. I'm just here to do whatever's required. And it's rewarding when you see that it's had an impact, and that the business is
Yeah.
bigger. And yeah,
I think that the challenge is sort of, as you scale up, is to still maintain that connection, I suppose, of all the different parts of the business, the marketing side and the people that are doing the packing and shipping and the sort of the vendor relationships and the customer relationships as you grow, right?
Yes.
I would think that's what my clients, the people that I work with, that's a challenge is the startup phase is very exciting. You're sort of doing a lot of things that bring a lot of joy. Those small improvements that you talk about, the small things that you do, the next right thing that you do that builds the business slowly. Of course, over time, it can be a huge change, right? Because those small improvements, they add up. But then as you scale up, to your point, is being able to still have your have sort of a more holistic view of how the business is running and be able to jump in.
Yeah.
Awesome.
In our
Well,
last business, the way we handled that was we implemented EOS, and there's other competitive systems out there, but that was what let us go to a process-led business and take, and free up so the finance people did the finance, the ops people did the ops and whatever. And you could still be the visionary or the integrator in the business and have, your say and look at the metrics and all that jazz, but you weren't running finance. You weren't running operations, right? And so hopefully I can get to the point where I have enough people that I could put in EOS.
Actually, I'm going to make a shameless plug for one of our products, if you want to call it that. We call it the disruptor method. And it's similar in some ways to EOS because it's about sort of creating those specialties, if you will, but with still a layer of coordination that allows people to communicate, collaborate effectively, visualize progress in the different domains that are in a business, and make strategic and tactical decisions that help propel the company forward. So,
cool. I'll check that out.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the show, Glenn. Really appreciate your coming on. I feel like we can sort of, if you're open to it, have another conversation, get a little deeper into your book.
Sure. Happy to converse at any point. And I'm try to be an open book, and I'm readily available as well to anyone on your audience that wants to chat or whatever. Connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm easy to get a hold of. So
yeah, we'll be putting some links in the show notes for you to your book and to your LinkedIn profile so people can connect with you directly. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.